The Young and the Restless Spoilers title, Shadows on the Mountain, Adam's return. It had started with a silence, one too calculated to be coincidence. Adam Newman had always been the outsider, the rebel child, the Newman who bore the name but rarely the respect that came with it. And this time, the exclusion cut deeper than any of Victor's backhanded remarks or Nikki's cold glances. An invitation had gone out, golden and embossed, to a select circle of Genoa City's most powerful, most manipulative, most essential figures. The party of Aristotle Dumas, in Paris, followed by a luxurious train ride through the French Alps, a celebration cloaked in glamour, but underneath, something far darker brewed. Adam did not receive that invitation. And the absence of it was not oversight. It was a message. But Adam had never been one to obey exclusion. He did not rage. He did not confront. He planned. In silence. In shadows. He had learned the art of slipping between the cracks of attention. He was the Newman they never saw coming, because they refused to acknowledge he belonged. Disguised, with a new passport, a carefully reshaped appearance and manner, Adam boarded the same private jet with the rest of the power players. Victor and Nikki, Nick and Victoria, each so caught in their own masks and manipulations that not a single one looked past their designer shades to question the man sitting a few rows away, staring out the window with eyes that had witnessed too many betrayals to ever be blinded by mountain sunlight. He listened, he observed, and above all, he waited. The train was the key. Not the party. Not the champagne-laced speeches or the laughter echoing through Parisian ballrooms. The train that wound through the snow-covered ridges, where Dumas had invited them for a more intimate revelation, that was where truths would be exposed. Adam felt it. And he was right. But he had not anticipated the violence. The first night on the train was elegance incarnate. The lights shimmered softly across crystal glasses, laughter masked tension, and every smile carried venom behind it. Dumas moved like a conductor of chaos, orchestrating glances, silences, and secrets. Adam kept to the shadows, creeping through sleeper cars, listening through vents, decoding conversations. He heard snippets. He knows. Claire isn't who she says she is. Dumas is holding leverage over Victor. Words laced with fear and hidden desperation. But on the second night, everything shattered. A storm rolled in over the mountains. The train slowed. And someone screamed. Adam was in the rear compartment when the lights cut out. He heard the scuffle before he saw it. Heavy boots. A blade. Pain. He fought back, barely. He didn't know if it was an assassin sent by Dumas, or a trap laid by someone even closer to the Newman family. The blood poured faster than he expected. He dragged himself through narrow corridors, head spinning, breath burning in his lungs. His disguise ruined. His vision eye blurring. But he wouldn't die like this. Not in the shadows. Not unknown. Not forgotten. He pushed himself forward, past the luxury suites where those who cast him aside drank toasts to their own illusions. He reached the grand lounge car. The door creaked. At first, they thought it was the wind. But then came the gasps. Nikki stood, her hand flying to her mouth. Victoria's wine glass shattered on the floor. Nick stepped back instinctively, eyes widening in a horror he couldn't name. And Victor? Victor stared, jaw clenched, as if part of him knew this moment had been coming since the day he first denied Adam the seat he craved at the family table. The man on the floor, crawling with bloodied hands, gasping in hoarse breaths, was Adam. No longer disguised. No longer hidden. His body bore the evidence of betrayal, of survival, of desperation. He looked up, met their eyes, and for a brief second, a flicker of peace passed over his battered face. He had made it. He was seen. He could let go. His body collapsed. His eyes closed. Victor rushed to him, dropping to his knees, his instincts as a father overtaking the years of mistrust and calculated cruelty. "Get me towels," he barked at no one and everyone, using his coat to staunch the bleeding. "Stay with me, son." But Nikki did not move. She stood frozen, her eyes not with concern but contempt. She had never trusted Adam. Never forgiven him for the chaos he brought into their lives. And now here he was? Half dead on the Persian carpet, covered in someone else's blood and his own sins. "He shouldn't be here," she said coldly, her voice slicing through the tension like a scalpel. "He was never supposed to be here." Victoria looked away. Nick clenched his jaw. No one argued. Only Victor worked to save him. The train kept moving, unaware or perhaps uncaring of the drama unfolding in its heart. Outside, the mountains grew steeper, the night colder. Inside, the balance of power shifted. Because Adam had returned. And whether they wanted to admit it or not, he was now part of the game. His blood soaked into the floor of the train like a curse. A warning. A claim. By the time the train reached the next checkpoint, Adam had been stabilized. Victor had refused to let him be airlifted off, insisting the family remain together until they reached their final destination. But nothing was the same. Every conversation was layered with new suspicion. Who attacked Adam? Was it Dumas? Was it someone else on the train? What did Adam hear before he was found? And what did he plan to do now that he was alive? Adam awoke hours later, bandaged, weak, but very much aware. He remembered every face that looked away. Every hand that didn't reach out. Every breath that held disgust instead of empathy. And as he looked up and saw Victor sitting beside him, he knew something fundamental had changed. Not just in him, but in the family. The silence between them said more than any words. And in that silence, Adam made a vow, not for revenge, not for pity, but for power. True power. The kind built not on inheritance or legacy, but survival. Because Adam Newman had bled for the right to be seen. And now that he had been, there was no going back. Whatever was on that train, whatever secrets Dumas still held, Adam would expose it all. Not for their approval. But for their reckoning. Let me know if you'd like to continue this scene with what happens after the train stops, what Adam reveals, or if you'd like to follow a flashback showing who attacked him and why. Ready when you are. Adam had not just survived by chance, he had survived with purpose. As his blood had mixed with the velvet carpet of the luxury train's lounge, he wasn't just clinging to life for his own sake. In the moments before he collapsed, before he lost consciousness beneath the judgmental stares of his family, Adam had triggered something far greater than anyone on that train could imagine. Deep in his coat pocket, concealed beneath the layers of false identities and burned fingertips, was a device, tiny, almost unnoticeable, but lethal in its implications. A silent message had been dispatched to the Paris police before he ever opened that lounge car door. A beacon. A flare. A warning that something monstrous was unfolding in the heart of the French Alps, veiled beneath the illusion of champagne, privilege, and generational wealth. Adam had known he might not live to see the aftermath. But that was never the point. He wasn't just trying to survive anymore. He was trying to save them all, even those who never wanted him. The train rattled forward, carving through a jagged path of snow and fog, unaware of the avalanche of consequences thundering toward it. And somewhere near the head of the train, nestled behind reinforced steel and shrouded by surveillance monitors, Aristotle Dumas sat alone in the control room, bathed in the cold, flickering glow of digital feeds. His eyes, black and motionless, stared into a dozen split-screen windows. He saw Adam crawl. He saw Victor kneel. He saw Nikki step back with disdain. He saw the family, cracked and bleeding, just like he wanted them. But when a small red light began to blink on one of his side panels, something in Dumas shifted. He leaned forward. Zoomed in. Another screen came to life. It showed the encrypted call relayed by Adam's device. It showed the connection to a Parisian emergency terminal. It showed flashing sirens being dispatched, silently, from a remote station. Adam Newman had called the police. Dumas did not panic, not yet. But his hands clenched. His jaw tightened. The plan had always been immaculate. The party, the train, the confinement of his enemies in one place. The revelations. The chaos. The revenge. And then his escape, timed perfectly before law enforcement could trace the whispers. But Adam had forced the clock to speed up. There was no time for elegant dismantling anymore. No time for psychological warfare and carefully planted betrayals. Now, it would have to be violent. Swift. Surgical. Escape, yes, but only over the bodies of those who tried to stop him. Back in the lounge car, Adam stirred. The sedation was wearing off. His body ached in places he didn't remember injuring. His head throbbed with a rhythm that didn't match the train's movement. But he opened his eyes. Not because he felt safe, he didn't. But because he knew he had to stay awake. He had heard Dumas's voice, hours earlier, whispering through the vents. He had seen the blueprints of the train, tucked inside a locked compartment in the service quarters. He had connected the dots. This wasn't a party. It was a trap. And now, if they didn't move, if they didn't realize the truth, they would all die together on this mountain. He tried to speak, but Victor hushed him, urging him to rest. Nikki looked away. Nick stood by the window, tense, arms folded, while Victoria paced with shallow breath and narrowed eyes. No one trusted Adam. Not enough. But Adam didn't need their trust. He needed action. He gritted his teeth, sat up with Victor's reluctant help, and whispered 4 words that cracked the illusion around them: "He's going to kill us." That was the first real shift. Victoria stopped pacing. Nick turned. Nikki's face went pale. Victor asked what he meant, but Adam had no strength for slow explanations. He pointed at the vents. At the cameras. At the silence that hung over the train like a spell. "He knows," Adam croaked. "He's watching." And in that moment, in a shadowed corridor near the engine car, a scream rang out. Followed by a thud. Then silence. Victoria bolted. Nick followed. Victor helped Adam up. Nikki, reluctant but too terrified to stay alone, trailed after them. The scream belonged to a steward, the same man who had brought them espresso an hour ago. Now he was sprawled on the floor of the gallery car, eyes wide, throat slit with clinical precision. And etched into the wall behind him, smeared in his own blood, was a single word: betrayers. The illusion was dead. And the hunt had begun. One by one, the train's luxurious compartments transformed into prisons. The doors locked electronically. The lights flickered. Phones stopped working. They weren't on a celebratory ride anymore, they were rats in a maze. And Dumas was the predator, moving swiftly between compartments, masked by corridors and crawlspaces only he knew. He had studied them all. He knew their weaknesses. Their pasts. Their sins. He would exploit every single one. Victoria, brave but brittle. Nick, loyal but rash. Nikki, proud but fragile. And Victor, the man who had humiliated Dumas years ago, dismantled his early empire, laughed when he begged for an alliance. This was personal. Every drop of blood would be an offering to Dumas's wounded pride. But Adam was still one step ahead. Even broken, he had mapped the train in his mind. He directed Victor to a narrow maintenance hatch that bypassed the main hallway. They slipped through, Adam groaning with every movement. Nikki refused to follow until she heard another gunshot echo 3 cars behind them. That was when she ran. They reached the service chamber, cold, metallic, ugly, and Adam revealed the second part of his plan. He had left a tracker. A digital imprint buried in the train's signal system. If they could reach the control node and disable the jammers, the police could triangulate their exact position. But the control room was guarded, locked, protected, wired to explode if tampered with. And Dumas was already in motion. Back in his lair, Dumas watched them crawl through his labyrinth. Rage etched itself into his face. This was supposed to be poetic. A finale. But now he would have to improvise. He armed the failsafe. The train would detour to a hidden tunnel near the Swiss border, where he would disembark with hostages, or corpses, and vanish. But one thing still puzzled him. Why had Adam risked everything for people who treated him like garbage? Why had he chosen to save them, when the easier path would be vengeance? Dumas would never understand. Because what Adam sought wasn't their forgiveness. It wasn't their approval. It was the reclamation of control. For the first time in his life, Adam Newman was no one's pawn. He was not Victor's son, Nicky's shame, or Nick's burden. He was the one who saw the storm coming and decided to shield the very people who left him out in the cold. As the train neared the tunnel, the final confrontation loomed. Victor, wounded but furious, would face the man who had planned their downfall. Nicky, armed now, stood beside him, unwilling to forgive Adam, but finally realizing he was no villain. Victoria and Nick tried to disable the control lock. Adam, limping, bleeding, pushed forward, whispering directions into a radio connected to the Parisian police. Yes, he had reached them again. They were minutes away. But Dumas was seconds from executing his final act. Would Adam reach him in time? Would the train stop before vanishing into a border no one could cross? Would the Newmans escape the fate Dumas had written in blood? Adam didn't know. But he was going to try. Not because they deserved it. But because he did. He deserved to be the hero of his own story, for once. Even if it killed him. Let me know if you'd like to continue this with the final confrontation, Dumas's arrest or escape, or Adam's fate after saving the family. I can go even deeper and longer with the next part.